Today's perspective on France 24, we're going to look at the humanitarian situation for children living in Gaza, living in territory that's facing continuous airstrikes and living with the imminent prospect of a ground offensive from Israeli forces. It's a situation that many have had to grow up living through in the past. So this time, the aid groups there say the effect of airstrikes have been worse than ever before. And of the Palestinian civilians displaced so far, around 20,000 are sheltering in UN schools. Lessons, ordinary life suspended. Jason Lee is the country director at Save the Children Palestine. Jason, good to talk to you. I know you're in the West Bank at the moment. You're in Ramallah. Do you have any team on the ground from Save the Children in Gaza right now?
Absolutely. Good morning. Look, our office we have an office in Gaza as well, and our teams are still in Gaza with their families and trapped and hibernating because of the ongoing airstrikes that are happening in Gaza.
What are they saying about the situation?
It's dire at the moment. I mean, they've now had 3 continuous days of intense airstrikes. People are fleeing their homes, and it's actually 125,000 people that have fled their homes and are now sheltering in the UNRWA schools. There's no electricity, so it means that the health centers can't work, the hospitals can't function, they can't keep vaccines cold, and the inherent risks that are involved. Again, the large numbers of civilians that are being injured and killed by the airstrikes. Everyone is seeking shelter in anticipation of worse to come.
So I know that some of the work that Save the Children have been doing, getting water access, getting nutritional health support to children, to women as well, also sanitation services. What's happening at the moment in the midst of this power cut, water cut, blockade from Israel?
Well, at the moment, humanitarians were not able to get entry into Gaza, so the entry points are closed. We can't send much needed personnel to support in the delivery of assistance. We can't actually send any humanitarian goods as well into Gaza at the moment. As Save the Children, we are trying to coordinate with broader partners, with UNRWA, with the rest of the UN and other fellow NGOs to ensure that, one, the shelters, the designated shelters, have the necessary support, that they have the materials to deliver. Remember, there are 125,000 people now that are sheltering in schools. They need food, they need water, they need medicines because many of them are injured. The kids need recreation kits. They need to have some sense of normalcy. And most importantly, children, especially now, need mental health and psychosocial support. Many are terrified. Yes, they've gone through this multiple times, unfortunately, with the cycle of violence, but they still need this support urgently.
To try and get a sense of the situation inside, this is a relatively small enclave which is packed, around the size of Malta, I've said, for a perspective point. But at the same time, you talk about the difficulty in getting aid in. For the women and children that the Save the Children staff have been dealing with, where are they going to for shelter? What's happening now in terms of many people saying that they simply cannot find a safe place to flee to?
Absolutely. Gaza is only 365 kilometers square, and it has a population of 2.4 million. There is really nowhere for them to leave. Gazans cannot leave into Israel. They cannot leave into Egypt at the moment, so they're stuck in the enclave. Now, it is a highly densely populated area. Civilians are not going to the schools. I mean, that's what most civilians are doing. They're fleeing to whatever schools are available, the UNRWA schools. They're also turning up to the public schools. But the schools can't house all of the 2.4 million people that are in Gaza. So soon, even the schools will be at bursting capacity, and residents really have nowhere else to go.
I look at the figures from the Palestinian health officials saying that in Gaza, 680 people killed, that's at least 78 of those so far are children. Is there anything you can do at the moment? You said it's very difficult to get, given the blockade, to actually get any aid in. What are you doing, despite the difficulties, to try to help those that are there right now?
Yeah, so again, we're trying to work with our teams that are in Gaza. Unfortunately, my teams in Gaza are also in the same situation as many of the residents. Many of my teams have had to leave their homes and now are seeking shelter elsewhere. Many of my teams are looking to ensure that they have enough food and water to last for the next few days with the ongoing airstrikes. And many of my teams have, unfortunately, family members that have been injured and killed as well. So my own teams are in the same situation as many of the residents in Gaza. So we are trying to do what we can. Obviously, once it's safe to do so, with ongoing airstrikes, it is very difficult for humanitarians to be out trying to deliver assistance to the civilian population, because the civilian population themselves are fleeing and they're trying to find desperately anywhere that they can get shelter, which is impossible when you have active airstrikes that are falling on top of them.
I know you have put out an urgent statement saying that the trauma that can be inflicted on so many children right now is absolutely worth a point of attention for any world leader. Antonio Guterres, the UN General Secretary, saying something similar. From your experience, children in this situation who are dealing with just trying to endure, survive basically, where does it take them often? Is the risk here that some analysts point to, there's a further risk of radicalisation, that what they're going through from experiences of the first, second intifada in the past?
I mean, look, all of our research and studies have shown, especially working with children, that there are increasing levels of children that are feeling depressed, increasing levels of anxiety, feelings of isolation and being withdrawn, and the most alarming, losing hope, not believing that they have a future and not having hope for a future. Now, it is impossible for any society around the world to have a future when the children themselves do not see a future for themselves. Now, Save the Children, we work intensely with children to try and give them hope, to provide them alternatives, to make sure that they stay at school, continue education, to seek jobs. But it is very difficult when the future prospects for them look so bleak.
Well, I witnessed myself in Libya working with Save the Children, reporting on children trying to go to school in the midst of conflict during the fall of Gaddafi a few years ago, back in the 2014. And I know some of the risks that your teams will be taking right now in Gaza. So I do wish them all the best. I mean, one thing that I noted I would like to mention to you, a senior Israeli military official yesterday said actually many people could flee. They can flee on the border with Egypt. It's a closed border, he said, right now, but Egypt should be able to open it. I mean, what's your sense of that in terms of what options people have, children have, women have, to try to flee the territory?
I think the most important thing, first and foremost, is for all sides to respect and protect civilians. The centrality of protection is critical. Irrespective of whether people are fleeing, there must be safe corridors for them to do so. It is difficult for civilians to flee when they're being when they're active airstrikes. Again, I think we're looking for all sides to really ensure that the protection of all civilians is the most central thing. I understand that there are military operations ongoing, but these must be stopped. We must ensure that civilians are kept safe to minimize the death and the casualties that are being inflicted, unfortunately, upon Gaza residents once again.
Jason, thank you for your time. For that context, I know you're in the West Bank and your teams, I hope they stay safe in Gaza right now and the difficult work they're doing. Jason Lee from Save the Children.